Hey everyone, welcome to our second app. In this app, we're going to make a counter. And it's very simple. You press plus, the number increases. You press minus, the number decreases. And you'll actually get to learn quite a few coding concepts along the way. You're going to learn about string interpolation. You're going to learn about variables. You're going to learn about conditionals. So there's plenty to do. And you know what? This app can actually be extended to some very interesting concepts. All right, so let's get started. So first things first, make sure you have your Swift Playgrounds app, and I'd like you to go create a brand new app. All right, so this app right here, I'm going to call it Counter. So tap and hold. Ooh, my app copy 46. Excellent. So here we go. Let's call it Counter for Explorers. And I'm going to tap on it. Feel free to customize the icon and tint color and things like that. Right now I have a nice shade of gold and a book icon, but it's okay. You can just do that afterwards. All right, so first I'd like you to keep the VStack. Okay, there's a VStack on the screen already. I'd like you to keep it, and I would like you to set up your app such that there's a piece of text where you have something to count and then two buttons. All right, so I've never taught you how to make buttons, but let's do a text first. And this one is going to be something that you want to count. So for me, I want to count the number of times my cat is yelling at me from outside the door when I'm trying to record this. I hope that his meowing has been filtered out by my noise cancellation software, but if it comes through, I'm very sorry. Okay, so let's do 0 meows. All right, and let's put an emoji, right? How do you put an emoji inside here? You press Control Command Spacebar, and you can search for cat. All right, there you go. This is a cat. All right, so 0 meows, and I need two buttons. Okay, so two buttons. First button is button, okay? And for this, if you want to use autocomplete, for now, let's just type it out. So I'm going to use this and say increase. All right, so increase after the closing bracket, put an open curly brace, and you can leave the part inside the curly brace empty. Okay, so far so good. On the next line, we're going to say button, open bracket, decrease. And again, inside the curly brace, we're going to leave it empty. I don't know how you can decrease the number of meows, but that's fine, right? Let's just leave it as this for now. So text, button, and button. All right, so maybe we want to add a few modifiers. I'm going to say for this, I'm going to do a dot font. And if you recall, there's a way to make it bigger with dot large title. All right, and these two buttons, maybe I want to give them some padding. So I'm going to say padding over here and padding over here. So just to give them a bit of space from one another. I also want to make my buttons look more like buttons because right now, these buttons are just colored text. They work, by the way, so you can actually go tap on these two, tap, 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 and you can see that something happens. In fact, this little thing shows up. Nothing's inside here, but this is called the console. The console is where you can print information for yourself. I'll show you something about that in a moment. I'm going to tap on decrease, and it kind of lights up to show that there's some kind of interaction. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure that these buttons actually look like buttons by using a new modifier after the closing curly brace for button, dot button style. Okay, very much like foreground style, dot button style. And I'm going to press a dot, and it's going to give me a few options. You can choose dot bordered. Let's take a look. That looks like this. It's a gray color box, which is not bad. But there's one other one which is a little bit more prominent. It's called bordered prominent. Click on that, and there you go. Right, that looks more like a button than you'd expect. So I'm going to add this modifier to the decrease button as well. Button style dot bordered prominent. Okay, and that's good enough for our setup. All right, so that's great. We have two buttons. If you tap on them, you'll notice that it kind of lights up a little bit just to let you know that something's actually happening. But you as the programmer might also want to run some code when these buttons are pressed. So I'm going to introduce something to you called a print statement. All right. If you've ever done any programming in any syntax-based language, for example, C or JavaScript or Python, you probably know something along these lines where you print hello world. Okay, so print is a lot like button, but it starts with a lowercase p. It's also got a bracket. It's also got double quotes. And if you type it correctly, if you tap on it, it will say hello world down here. Okay, and if you tap it again, it will pop up again, right? Which means that every time you tap on this, the code inside these curly braces gets run. Okay, whereas for this one, you could say print stop yelling. He's still yelling at me. I think it's his dinner time. I'm very sorry, cat. Okay, so I'm going to tap on this and it's going to say stop yelling. I'm going to tap on this. It's going to say hello world. One thing about this is that your user doesn't actually see anything pop up in their app. Okay, so right now you're not changing anything for the user. What we eventually want to do is we want to make it such that this number will increase when you tap on increase, and this number will decrease when you tap on decrease. But for now, we're just putting these two print statements as a way of telling ourselves that our code actually works. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to help you get this number to actually change. And to do that, you're going to need something called a variable. Okay, how does a variable work? Well, let me go up here and I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to go in between struct content view (view) and var body (sum view), and I'm going to type in the variable. You have to follow along. At state, capital S, private var counter equals 0. Okay, so this thing right here, if you type slowly, once again, Swift Playgrounds will yell at you saying, there's an error here, there's an error here, there's an error here. All right, just tell Swift Playgrounds to chill a little and you will eventually get it right. If, however, you finish typing and there's still an error, pause the video and take a look at how I type on screen. Make sure that you have the @ sign over here. Make sure it's private var, lowercase p, lowercase v, and counter equals to 0. Okay, make sure that the code is in the right place. It's got to be in between struct content view and var body sum view. Okay, so this thing over here is a variable. If you've done algebra in high school, you probably know what a variable is. It's something that you use to store a number. Okay, except in Swift, you can store many things. You can store numbers, you can store strings, you can store true and false, which seems a bit strange, but we'll get to that at some point. For now, this variable just stores a number. It's like x in algebra. All right, and now what we want to do is we want to display this variable in our app. And one way to do that is by saying down here, text, open bracket, and I'm going to say string, bracket, counter. What this does is it converts this variable, which is actually an integer, right? There's a 0 over here, it's a whole number, and it converts it from 0 to a string representation of 0. So what this means is that instead of a drawing, you take a picture of a drawing. Okay, so it's kind of like the same representation, but in a different medium. Swift is very careful about these things. You can't actually do this. You can't actually put a number directly inside a text element on screen. That is going to give you an error. Okay, so it says no exact matches in call to initializer. All right, so that's one way. I'm going to show you a better way. Let's delete this. And I'm going to go over here. You can see this 0 meows over here. I'm going to delete this 0 and I'm going to type in a backslash followed by an open and closing curly bracket. And inside the brackets, I'm going to type in counter. It'll even autocomplete for you, so just press enter. Okay, so this doesn't change what the user sees at all, but now this number on screen, this 0, is inextricably tied to this variable over here. All right, so if we change this variable in our code, the number on screen will change, and that's pretty awesome. So let's do that. I'm going to go down to my button, and I'm going to delete the line that says print hello world. I'm just going to type in counter equals counter plus 1. Okay, this does not make sense algebraically. You cannot say x equals to x plus 1 in your math exam because your math teacher will be very, very angry with you. Because if x equals x plus 1, then 1 equals to 0 and the universe implodes. We wouldn't want that. However, in Swift and many programming languages, the equal sign actually means take whatever's on the right-hand side, evaluate it, and store it into the variable on the left-hand side. So counter equals counter plus 1 just means counter equals to 0 plus 1. So now counter is 1. Every time you press the increase button, counter will add 1 to the previous value and update itself. Enough talk. Let's press this button. Press. Ooh, Press. Okay, you can have endless hours of fun just pressing this button. Okay, maybe endless seconds of fun. All right, I'd like you now to pause the video and figure out what to do for the decrease button. Shouldn't be too difficult. Pause the video. Have you paused the video? Because I'm going to go through it right now. Simple enough, right? You just delete away this print statement over here, and you can say counter equals to counter minus 1. All right, and now if you increase, great. If you hit decrease, it will now go down. All right, it will also let us go down to negative meows, which is a little bit of a problem, but let's fix that in the next video. Right now, you have a fun little app. You can give this to a tiny sibling with a very short attention span and see how long they can press this button. I'll see you in the next video.